In this video about a nightmarish experience with drugs, the way the images are edited together and the choice of sound combine to evoke a particularly effective atmosphere. The claustrophobic images, which are often repeated, create a sense of never-ending nightmare from which there appears to be no escape. Perhaps the most enjoyable part of making a video is editing the pictures afterwards to create the mood and the pace that you want. Of course, it also allows you to wipe out those inevitable mistakes and to produce the best possible video from the available material. Now, this is the basic equipment that you'll need. You'll want one video machine to replay your material, another video on which to record, and a television or monitor so that you can see what's going on. You can have any combination of tape formats and machine. For instance, a Video 8 camcorder can be used as the playback machine into a VHS recorder. Use the video sockets to connect the machines together. Video out from the playback machine and the video in for the recording machine. This gives much better quality than using the aerial lead. The process is very simple. We choose the shot that we want to use on the master tape and decide where we want to start it. Then we rewind for about 10 seconds or so and put it in pause. Now over to the record machine. We decide at which point on the tape we want to begin this recording, put that into pause and also into record mode, although of course it won't actually begin recording because the pause button's pressed, but we're all ready. Right, so let's begin by setting off the master tape. Remember, there's about 10 seconds before we actually need to begin recording, and at exactly the right point, we release pause, and it started to record.
Let's just check this and see. We want to go back to just behind the door, somewhere around about there.
Okay.
Peter and Richard Simmons shot their first video to publicise their local steam engine society. They had recorded many hours of material and then had to edit it all together for a video which would last only about 15 minutes.
Frame now. Right.
They borrowed a second video recorder from a friend and then set to work.
Back a bit.
They realised that they had to adopt a systematic approach to make sense of all their material.
We looked at what we'd got to start with, obviously, and made a note of which sections from which shots we actually thought we might use, and marked those up on the storyboard by taking the counter reading from the video we used as our guide.
We then proceeded to copy the shots that we wanted in the order that we wanted them, one by one, and periodically you have to check that what you've done is actually right, because you can't go back and drop one in the middle 5 minutes ago. If you do a shot and you do it slightly wrong, then the next time you copy over, you've got to copy over the end of the previous one, so you lose a bit of your shot. So if you muck it up 2 or 3 times, the shot is getting shorter and shorter as you do successive attempts to copy over. And the counters on domestic video recorders are not that accurate. They don't go frame by frame or anything like that. So you can be in for a surprise when it comes up on the screen as to where you are.
There are a few simple points to watch out for when editing.
To let it run till
Try and avoid one shot followed by another that looks almost the same.
these shots
And try and avoid beginning or ending a shot in the middle of a sudden action.
cylinder. Do you want to keep the jump in, or do you think we ought to go before
No, we
the
should go
jump?
before the jump.
Okay, well,
There's no fixed way of deciding what shot should follow another. It's all a matter of what feels good and a matter of style.
that's quite
So
rigid.
discussion can be helpful.
Up and down.
Do we have any of the cylinder later on?
Well, we could cut it before we start to zoom, so that we lose all, because it looks
Lose
silly
all
if you
of that
just
lot,
start
yeah.
to zoom and then cut it out.
Yeah,
So
all right. Take all that lot out then.
whip it back on the rewind, and that's the beginning of the next shot.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
here we go then. Go.
How much of Frank do we want?
We've got to wait until his head comes into view at the end of this, because that's what signifies that he'll be talking then
Yeah.
on the sound. And then just before the light comes into shot, that's a cut
Cut.
out there.
There.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I think when you start feeling bored with what you're looking at, that's the time to change. But you've got to be very critical. And we've seen some videos that other colleagues have done where you begin to think, heavens above, we've seen that steam train going round there for 5 minutes. And it may be very interesting if you happen to be interested in that particular steam train. But as a whole, you begin to yawn. And that is the critical point, I think, looking at it from somebody else's point of view, not your own.
The physical action of editing is pretty straightforward. It just requires practice. The hard part comes with the choices and decisions that we have to make. Take a look at this shot. Here we have a young woman walking along. There's nothing to suggest where she's going. And here's a young man walking in a totally different location. These are two apparently unrelated shots. The decisions we make when editing can completely change the impression that the pictures give, so that if I rearrange the pictures, I can alter the storyline. By quick cutting between the two, we're beginning to suggest that there is a connection between them. They might be about to meet up with each other. Now, there's one simple way that you can alter the mood of your video without requiring an extra video recorder. If your machine has an audio dub facility, then you can add music to your pictures. And with appropriate music, we can reinforce the idea that they're about to meet. Now here we have 3 shots, which depending on the order in which we edit them and the music we dub on, can convey different moods and meaning. Now let's change the order of the shots and use some other background music to convey a different idea. In this home video made by Archie Reed, the music and sound strikingly convey a very definite sense of unease. Now look at it again to see how a different expectation and emotional response can be created by merely changing the music. Adding music to your videos is a very simple procedure. All you have to do is to plug in the source of your music, in this case a cassette recorder, into the audio in socket. Make sure that the tape is wound to the head of the chosen track and put it in pause. And then once you've released the pause button, you can start the audio dub. It's a fairly crude method in that the audio dub facility will wipe out your original sound recording. Now, if you want to keep the original recording and have an additional source of sound like music, then it gets a little tricky. What you can do is to use a stereo video recorder so that you can keep the original sound on one track and record your additional source on another track. It does work, but there is some difficulty in controlling sound levels, and you might find that the music drowns out your original sound. The only way to adequately mix different sound sources is to re-record the original soundtrack onto a sound tape or cassette. But the only thing is that you can't do that with any old tape recorder because of the problems of maintaining synchronization, keeping the picture locked into the sound. Once synchronization is lost, then you start to notice very quickly. For example, if you watch my lips carefully, you'll see that my lip movements aren't exactly matching the sound of my voice right now. You need a control box like this, which picks up the synchronous pulse off the video recorder and controls the speed of a specially modified audio cassette machine. It doesn't have to be as sophisticated as this one, but here I've got a simple mixing unit as well. Now, I've already recorded the original video sound and the vital sync pulse, and on another track I've got some music. There must be a clear starting point for picture and the sound. I've chosen the first frame of the next shot, and using the frame advance control, I can find the point fairly accurately. Once the picture is at the first frame, all I have to do is to start the audio dub and the sound tape will automatically begin. And then it's easy. All I have to do is to mix the music with the original sound as often as I like to get the balance right. And then with a bit of luck, it'll not only sound good, it'll still be in sync. If you use any music taken from a record, you have to pay a copyright fee. How much this is depends upon who published it and how much you want to use, but it can work out pretty expensive. However, there are two ways around the problem. One thing you can do is to encourage your friends to compose and play original music for your video and then assign copyright to you. The 70 members of the Skerry Cooperative in Scotland made this video to record a year in the life of their local community. The music is traditional and played by members of the cooperative. The other thing is that you can apply to the Institute of Amateur Cinematographers, who can issue you with a blanket licence that'll cover most records. It's valid for a year, covers most music, and only costs a few pounds. If you don't plan to use music in your video but want to create atmosphere with sound effects, then there are special sound effects records that you can buy that are copyright free. Douglas has edited the pictures of a video about one of her interests, the architecture of a medieval religious order. While she decided to add music to the video, she also needed commentary to supplement the pictures.
You've got your film, you have got to find some way of livening it up, so it can either be music or commentary or both, and that's what I decided to do, was to add on music to at least keep a general sound going through the whole thing, because I don't think that just watching the picture moving, or not moving in the case of a wall, is that interesting to watch. And then the sound commentary adding in to give general background information, as it's such a vague subject and not everybody knows about the kind of church architecture that we're trying to show.
Writing words to accompany the pictures in a video is a demanding exercise, as the words not only need to convey what is desired, but must also relate to the pictures. Kate's approach to this task is systematic.
Having looked at it and got a vague idea of timing, then I'll write down what I want to say in addition to what's on film. The background information to the priory, any bits and pieces of information that I can possibly add in. Having got that written down roughly in note form, I'll start writing it out properly. Then I'll try and read it, and hopefully I can read it reasonably well. It was founded in 1163 as a gift from a grateful Louis VII, who, legend has it, was lost in the vast forest, but was rescued at the spot where the priory stands. It's now owned by a community of Ursuline nuns who use it as a summer retreat. The lay entry is very simple, with no elaborate carving. That's not right.
Yes, I think we'd better make it main church doorway.
Right.
It's often helpful to read the commentary with the pictures to someone else to test out its effectiveness.
It's a summer retreat. The main church doorway is very simple with no elaborate carving. Hopefully they don't have too many criticisms to make, but if they do, then accept them, because it's somebody who's impartial, who hasn't seen it before, and who can actually assist. In this lovely park setting.
So what sort of advice might a friend give?
Whether something actually sounds right, whether what I've written down on paper sounds natural enough, whether it is actually a conversation that I'm having with whoever's looking at the video. Whether I'm giving over the information that I want to give over in the right way, whether I just sound boring or not.
I suppose it's quite important then that you don't actually speak over everything.
Yeah, there's one section in the film which is the interior of a church, and it's a church which is used now. And I wanted to get the idea of the peace and the quiet and the calm, and to put a commentary over that would have been silly. So I've left it with a bit of music going over it, with no commentary at all, and hopefully the picture then speaks for itself. 48 hours after leaving Craswell, we were in France. Our first stop about 30 miles south of Paris in the forest of Rambouillet. I get my final typescript version and sit down with a microphone and a double cassette deck, and I record the commentary right through. The Priory of Louis is one of the better preserved of the remaining Grandmontine cells.
Once Kate has recorded the commentary, she mixes it with the music using the double cassette deck. The commentary is on one audio cassette and the music is on the other.
It was rescued at the spot where the priory stands. It is now owned by a community of Ursuline nuns.
I'm looking at the film and I know which section's coming up next, so I just need to release the pause button, get to the end of that section, pause again, and so on throughout the whole thing.
Kate, what would you say the most important thing is that you've learnt from writing commentaries?
I think basically keep it short. Keep the commentary as brief as you can and as to the point as you can. Keep it cheerful. Try and get it interesting.